How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, man, you too.
I wasn't too familiar with racing,
Okay.
and then I kind of started to look into it a little more just to kind of know. But can you kind of describe what it's going to be like this weekend coming up?
The track there in Dinwiddie, Richmond, it's definitely one of the better surfaces that we race on, but it's also going to be extremely hot this weekend, which makes for tricky track conditions because with the sun and the temperature, it makes the track surface a little gooey, slippery, which makes it hard to hook up 11, 12,000 horsepower to get the ultimate traction that we need. They spray traction compound on the surface, which is like a glue to help the tires get grip. So when that sits in the sun and the hot temperatures like that, it just gets slimy and it makes it really tricky to put all that power to the ground. So when that happens, it kind of turns into a driver's race where they might have to work the throttle pedal quite a bit to try and get those big Goodyear tires to hook up to the track surface.
It's cool, like you're saying, like the real specifics of it. It's pretty cool that side.
Yeah, I mean everybody thinks, a drag strip's two lanes, they're all basically the same, but every track that we go to has its own characteristics. And this one, like I said, is probably the smoothest one that we go to, but it's still going to have its own character just because of the high temperatures this weekend.
I read that you obtained your top fuel license, like a week after you graduated from high school. So, what or who inspired you to pursue a career in a sport where, African American representation is not huge?
Yeah, I mean, it all started with my dad, who's also African American. He raced dirt track motorcycles pretty much all his life up until even, after I was born. So watching him race growing up as a kid, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And, my parents thought that was a dangerous path. So they got me started in drag racing when I was 10 years old, junior drag racing. And I mean, I feel like drag racing compared to other forms of motorsports is an extremely open form of racing. Like there's no real barriers that you have to break through to get over, whether you're, black, white, male, female. I mean, it's been that way since going back to the 60s and 70s with you know, people like Don Perdome and Shirley Modowney coming into the sport. So I mean, it was easy for me to get involved in the sport, but I mean, there's definitely I guess barriers that you break down when you become, the first ever to win the Top Fuel national event or a funny car world championship. Those are definitely some cool milestones to have achieved as a person in drag racing.
You actually kind of started talking more about my next question I had, but just how does it feel to be the first like African American driver to win
It's
both?
awesome. When I won my first race in 2006, I was just pumped that, that I won my first event, beating, the best in the world at that time. And, people were making a bigger deal about it than I even realized what happened. And the next day, you're getting calls from national news outlets and, doing interviews with people like USA Today because, you were the first ever African American to win a national event. That's when it hit me like, oh man, this is a huge deal. So yeah, it's awesome. I feel like our sport has a big African American following. So it's awesome to give those fans, somebody to cheer for. And, I get reminded all the time when they come up to the pit area and, want their picture taken and just tell me that, they're big fans and proud of what I'm doing. It definitely, it makes you proud as a driver.
Can you share like your emotions or thoughts when you realize like you actually have won it? Like as you passed through, did it hit you or was it later?
Yeah, I was pumped. I mean, as a rookie, I think it was only my ninth start, and we're going up against Tony Schumacher, who was a multi-time champion at that time and won, a boatload of races. So he was the heavy favorite in the final round, and nobody expected us to go out there and knock him off in the final round. So once you see the win light come on the wall past the finish line, I mean, I was ready to jump out of the car and start celebrating before it even stopped. So, Yeah, I was pumped, and
And
yeah,
this was your first race?
no, this was my first win. This
Oh,
would have been
okay.
my ninth race,
Okay.
and
What's been the biggest challenge you faced in your career and, how you overcame that?
up until 2014 when I started racing for the team that I'm with now, Coletta Motorsports. The challenge was always sponsorship. I mean, these things are so expensive to race that you need, the big sponsors to help offset the budget. And I was always with, some smaller teams in the past that didn't have the funding. So you're struggling to keep a ride or find sponsors to keep going. So that was definitely the biggest hurdle to overcome. I mean, there's times that I went, a few years without a driving job. And you just wonder if you're going to get that opportunity to get back in the seat again to prove that you belong, or at least you think you belong up there. And like I said, once I got hooked up with Connie Coletta in 2014, that kind of like restarted my career all over again. Yeah, I've never had the security of not having to worry about to go find sponsorship to keep my job or anything like that. So that's been a big sigh of relief to where I can just focus on, being a better driver, and it's definitely changed my career from 2014 until now.
What would that look like when you had to go find sponsorship? Was it you on your own meeting with these people, or is
Uh,
it like your team? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's times it was myself and my dad, or you're hiring agencies to go pitch deals for you, and just it's time consuming and expensive at the same time. And I don't come from a wealthy family by any means to be going and doing things like that. And got a lucky break when I got the call from Connie Clutta to drive for him, where I didn't have to bring, sponsorship money or anything like that. So it definitely makes me appreciate now what I have from when I was, out of a ride and trying to find those sponsors to take to a team to continue racing.
so I'm kind of curious, what does a typical race day look like for you? Like, do you have any rituals or routines that you do?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that. I mean, there's responsibilities I have on the car outside of driving it. Gotta get the fuel ready to go into the car. It's called nitromethane, and we can only run a certain percentage of nitromethane by rule. And it's a really volatile fuel. I mean, that's a big tuning aspect. So the crew chiefs, they'll change percentages within a tenth of a percent. So it's a lot of drivers' jobs to mix the nitro, make sure that's right, pack the parachutes. But other than that, like I don't have any rituals or pre-race routines or anything like that I do at the track. Just kind of stay focused, stay calm, hang out with the guys in the pit area, sign autographs for the fans when they're there at the pits watching. But other than that, just try to stay focused on getting 12,000 horsepower from point A to point B.